Well, we got Bad Nancy in the shop. Yes, my daughter named her Bad Nancy. We got the Tahoe in the shop, and yes, we are doing an LS swap. So I know you guys are gonna hate me. I know you're gonna go down and comment, everybody does an LS swap. Well, guess what? I haven't, so that's what we're doing. I'm excited. I've never really messed with V8s. I've had a few throughout the years, but I've never really modified them, never messed with them. So I'm excited. I've never really been into Chevys either, so this is kind of a whole new ball game for me. So we got this thing, we got to pull the motor and tranny. I am going to use the automatic tranny. I'm going with a different transfer case, but I figured we already got the tranny. If someday I want to swap to something different, we can always do that. But for now, I think we're going to just run with this tranny. Now this thing has like 250,000 miles on it. I don't know how, but this thing runs so good. You guys, if you guys are into LSs, into 5.3s, you know these things got lifter issues with like oil pressure when they're cold. I don't know exactly what it's from, but you start them up and they're clack, clack, clack. This thing sat all winter long. I haven't started it in like 6 months. I went out and fired it up and it's absolutely smooth. It's quiet. This thing drives really nice. It shifts really good. So I think we got a good one. I think the motor and tranny are really solid. There's no leaks. It runs, like I said, really good, really quiet, plenty of power, and it shifts really good. So I know the tranny is in pretty good shape. So that's the game plan. I'm not sure what we're doing with the motor exactly. I don't know. We need to get this thing out of the Yukon first. So that is the game plan. Pull the motor and tranny out. And if you guys have a Yukon, if you guys are into these and need some parts, I got a bunch of parts. Hit me up. I'll drop my email address in the description box. If you guys see something you need, feel free to email me. If I had to give you guys one tip while swapping a motor, at this point at least, it is labeling all the electrical connections. As I take these things apart, I've learned to just label everything, even if you're not going to use the stuff, just so you know what it is. You don't have to scrummage through a book or the forums to try to figure out what one plug is to see if you need it or not. So as I take this harness out, I'm going to label every single plug. It just saves so much time in the future when you go to do the harness and strip it down, all the stuff we don't need. It saves so much time knowing what every connection is. And especially on something like this where you're unfamiliar like I am with this engine. On something like a Toyota, I could probably figure out what just about every plug is by looking at it, but something like this, Chevy, I've never really screwed with Chevys. I really don't know what these plugs are, so I'm gonna label everything. Well, after a little bit of research, I found you can just disconnect the main harness for the engine right out of the fuse box. This makes it so much easier. You don't have to go around the whole engine and transmission and pull every little plug off. You just dig into this fuse box here and pull the main plug, and there's a couple other plugins underneath, and you can just lay the whole harness right on top of the motor. And then, like I said, you don't have to worry about unplugging everything off the motor. Now I'm still undecided if I'm gonna try to leave the motor and tranny together. That usually is the best way to do it, but this is so long and so heavy, it might be a pain in the butt to get out with them together. Now regardless if I do that or not, it's gonna be a lot easier to pull this motor with a front end off. So I think you can take this whole condenser, radiator, core support, and the grill off and get a lot more clearance to pull this motor. So that's what I'm gonna do now. I'm gonna pull the whole front end off. I think it'll make it a lot easier to get this motor out. Well, that was a little stressful. I'm used to pulling out little 4 cylinders, and this V8 with the tranny transfer case had me a little stressed out with the strength of the hoist. Honestly, that thing, I felt like it was at its limit with everything on that hoist, but we got it out, we got it on the ground. Check this out, what I found. This may be a good or a bad thing because somebody may have replaced this transmission, but you can see we got a broken bell housing little boss there. That's obviously never good, but missing bolt, and then we got a bolt over here that is just finger tight. So I think this bell housing is held on to the motor with like 4 bolts on the bottom. Obviously that's not good, but that might mean we have a newer transmission. So either way, I know this thing shifts really good, so we're leaving it. I do want to go through and pressure wash the motor, get this cleaned up before we even start messing with it in the FJ, but we got to go through and clean up our mess. We got to get this thing out of here, and then we can pressure wash this motor, tranny, clean it all up. Well, the engine turned out really good. This thing cleaned up really nice. I'm stoked about that. Now, all you LS guys, I got a few questions for you. So I plan on doing possibly a cam, headers, intake, maybe an intake manifold and throttle body. I know it doesn't build power. It just looks a lot cleaner and a lot better with the intake manifold. So I plan on doing that. Now, what else do these engines like? For little mods, I don't want to go all out, but little mods that help these things. Also, I think I'm gonna drop the pan, make sure that's all sealed up. I know the O-ring on the pickup tubes is a common problem where you can lose oil pressure. This one did have really good oil pressure, but I figured while we have the motor out, I'm gonna do that. And then water pump, oil pump, and I don't know, maybe a few other little things. But also, who is a good tuner for these? I know you gotta do a few things to get these to run standalone. Drop a comment, let me know any good tuners that can tune for the standalone and tune for power mods as well. Like a cam, I know these things like to be tuned with a cam. So a couple things I want to do to this motor, but for now it turned out really good. Now we can get this thing dropped in. I want to drop it in the FJ and kind of just build my mounts, get it set in the truck, and then we can pull it back out and do everything we need to do. Well, that's a wrap, folks. Hope you enjoyed the video. Why don't you go smash that thumbs up button, comment, subscribe. We'll see you in the next one.